911, is this the police? We got robbed! We got robbed! Okay, ma'am, what's the address where this happened? Ma'am, what's the address? Were there any weapons involved? Yes! What? Okay, ma'am, where is he now? Ma'am? Hello?
This lady was terrified by a robber who had violently robbed her bank.
Copy, subject is armed, signal 0. Out of 5, it's a silver revolver, it looks like.
Is he running or just walking?
Ashley walks over there.
Over here, help me, I got 2 adult males. You see anybody running here just from the bank?
What happened?
Bank robbery.
But soon, this seemingly straightforward robbery investigation was about to spiral into something unexpected and was about to take a dark turn.
Began watching the surveillance, was completely shocked.
For the first time on YouTube, the shocking twists of this case would make it one of the most insane cases ever.
Keep your hands up. Stay there.
On May 15, 2015, a 911 call from a local bank in Newport Richey sent officers racing to the scene. But what started as a routine response was about to unravel into a case they'd never forget.
Copy, subject is armed, signal 0. Out of 5, it's a silver revolver, it looks like. Out of 5, he's wearing a hat and glasses.
Geared up for danger ahead, the police rushed to the scene, but they were soon dejected.
Ida 1.
Ida 1.
Is it 1039 to forensics and major crime? Who are these folks?
What?
Are these witnesses?
These were all... He was here. That white car with the dude over here drinking coffee were here.
Is he running or just walking?
Ashley walks over there.
Over here, help me, I got 2 adult males. One with a beard. Let's get him a signal phone.
Units on the robbery just occurred. Switch to talk 1. Talk 1. Talk 1.
How many people are in the bank? Just one?
She was the killer. He kind of got a glimpse of it because he was in the back. The guy was on watch. So just basically.
So we don't have tons of people then. Okay.
No, just her is the only one I've really got a good description.
With the robber already having fled, the officers shifted their focus to the scene itself. Every detail, from fingerprints to security tapes, could hold the key to identifying the culprit, and they weren't about to miss a single clue. But there was someone who had seen the suspect, and the statement could be the breakthrough police needed. Wasting no time, investigators quickly reached out to her.
Are you okay? It'll be okay. You take a few minutes, okay? All right, you'll be fine. You want some water?
PC 105.
Some wine? I'm just kidding.
The bank teller told them she was at the counter when the suspect entered the bank like a regular customer. But as soon as he reached the counter, he pulled a firearm from his waistband, gripping it in his right hand and aimed it directly at her.
He's demanding money. He's calling her repeatedly and just refusing to accept the amount of money she could give. She then had to access more money to appease him, to get him out of the bank.
As one team began analyzing the surveillance footage from the bank, another called for backup to track the suspect's trail. During the footage analysis, the officers made a shocking discovery. The suspect wasn't just a bank robber, but he was also a wanted killer in a separate murder case and had been on the loose for an entire year. The case involved 69-year-old Billy Schuler, who had gone missing on May 21, 2014, but was later discovered dead in a wooded area on May 23, 2014, turning his disappearance into a homicide investigation. This revelation made it even more urgent for them to find him as soon as possible.
Hey. When the K9 gets here, is this the path? We need to this thing. Let's make it where we don't have 9,000 people walking.
We have Newport K9 51.
They just pulled up.
997, give them a point.
At this point, they received the information they desperately needed. The armed suspect had fled east toward a nearby gas station.
That way. Running right that way. Be advised, the K9 deploying.
With a dangerous criminal on the loose, civilians were at risk and the officers couldn't afford to waste any time.
You definitely ran over to the gas station. Copy, ran over to the gas station.
I just pulled into the station.
4 and 14. See if they have video.
The guy
outside with glasses right there, and then this guy's here. I don't know if they pulled up before I got here. Do me a favor, stay right there. You see anybody run in here just from the bank?
What happened?
Bank robbery. Hey, do you have a guy with a beard come running in here? No. Nothing? Did you see anybody?
They couldn't take anything at face value. The robber could have been in disguise or hiding in plain sight.
Patrol deputies went to the gas station, went in, made contact with the employees, making sure no one was in there matching the description, and they keep expanding that area of where he was last seen heading to. See if he's still in the area.
This was not an ordinary sweep anymore. It had become a hunt already. With their suspect on the loose, the officers were ready to chase down every lead, no matter where it took them.
Did you see someone go in here? Yeah. Sheriff's office, anybody in there? Was this locked?
What does he look like, just in case?
White male with a beard, possibly has a gun. Do you have any cameras on the outside?
Yes, we do have cameras all around.
Can we rewind in a few minutes to see?
I don't have access to it, but I can call the owner.
All right, we need someone to come down here so we can look at it. I just checked inside them. They said they didn't see anybody.
The officers questioned potential witnesses outside the gas station with the hope of uncovering any clue about the suspect's next move.
You see any guy in a white guy with a white t-shirt run by here with a beard? Just pulled up? Okay. Hi. Is that your driver's license or an ID card on you real quick? Yeah. The reason I wanted to talk to you is we had a bank robbery over here just now, and a suspect was seen running over here, white male with facial hair. So that's why we're talking to you. All right? You guys just traveling through here, or do you live around here somewhere? All right. Where do you live at?
The police dogs had detected the suspect's scent near a school, which put young children in grave danger.
Has he got something?
Barton and Redley. Barton and Redley. I got a white male fitting that description.
They didn't have an image of the suspect yet, but only a description of him being a white male wearing a short-sleeved white t-shirt and a navy blue cap. Acting quickly on the information, patrol deputies moved into the school area where the suspect was likely to be. When they reached there, another team had already detained a possible match outside.
Keep your hands up. Stay there.
The officers had the suspect in their care, but they wanted to assure the safety of school students, so they quickly moved inside the school, unsure what they were going to find. The school staff, sensing the threat, had already locked everything as a safety measure, but the officers needed to ensure there were no lurking threats that could put the young students in danger.
All of these would have been locked.
Yes.
And then the rest of your school is locked down.
Yes.
Are there students in the school here?
Yes.
Okay.
This is the high school and the elementary schools over there.
Right.
Why don't we check the perimeter? The dog tracked right around the corner. So I don't know if he's on a scent, but we need to make sure it's locked down.
After a thorough search, it was confirmed that there was no one inside the school. But to their surprise, the suspect they had caught was actually the school principal, who was merely concerned for the safety and well-being of his students.
I'm the school principal of the school. Do I need to have the school on?
Awesome. Go ahead and stand up. The principal from the school.
And I told her that you guys needed to go inside.
Right.
The empty school provided some sense of relief to them, but at the same time, it worried the detectives as the armed suspect was still on the loose, and he could possibly harm someone. Seeking answers, they returned to the local bank where it all started. They obtained surveillance footage from the bank where the suspect could be seen clearly, and they immediately began analyzing and circulating it. While reviewing the footage, something clicked in their mind. There were similar robberies that had happened in 8 different banks, but all of these heists had a few things in common, and it seemed like the cops had hit a jackpot. They could tell all robberies were done by the same person in disguise. Even the firearm used in previous heists seemed consistent with this robbery.
He's using different types of disguises, different wigs. He's wearing different hats, different shirts. You can see the mustache. He has different glasses on, sometimes prescription like reader style glasses, sometimes sunglasses.
But there was something that was more alarming for them than the heists itself, the suspect's behavior. He visibly looked aggressive during the heists, raising further alarm bells that it was only a matter of time before he would kill someone. Now, capturing him wasn't just about solving a case of robberies anymore, it was about people's safety.
I work at a bank and I was just robbed.
Was it an armed emergency?
Yes, he was on.
Do you have a gun?
Yes.
While looking for the suspect in the robbery cases, the investigators simultaneously began working on another lead that they had received about the Billy Schuler murder case. At this stage of the investigation, detectives needed to uncover what really happened to Billy and how he ended up dead. On May 22, 2014, detectives received a missing person report. Billy Schuler, a 69-year-old retired minister and coin dealer from Citrus County, Florida, had vanished and left his family devastated. According to Billy's wife, on May 21, 2014, Billy had left home to meet someone for a coin transaction. What he didn't know was that his passion for collecting coins as a dealer would soon put him in grave danger. At the time, detectives didn't know Billy would turn up dead, so they were still using their resources to find him. And soon, they stumbled upon their first breakthrough, one that would bring them closer to solving the case.
The investigators had conducted a phone ping to possibly locate where the missing person was, and in doing so, they were able to identify a warehouse location in Holiday, Florida.
Acting quickly, investigators arrived at a warehouse where they had discovered Billy's truck. They thought this truck was the final piece of the puzzle, as Billy was last seen in this truck, but even that turned out to be a disappointment. Billy was nowhere to be found. The discovery raised even more unsettling questions and concerns. Where could Billy possibly have gone? Who left his truck abandoned here? With no time to waste, they began a thorough search of the truck.
My first observation of the truck was that it was just a normal pickup truck parked in a parking spot inside of the industrial park. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary for this truck to have been parked there.
That is until the detectives discovered something unexpected inside the car trunk. Billy's valuable item collection was still intact.
There was hundreds of coins, various precious metals, jewelry, obviously high dollar amount items that were meticulously itemized in envelopes. We knew that Billy Schuler did deal in coins and precious metals. We didn't know why nothing was taken from the truck.
If this was a robbery, why were the coins left untouched? This only heightened their fears that something far worse had happened to him. And then, detectives made an unsettling discovery that sent chills down their spines.
During my initial walk around the vehicle, I observed a projectile on the running board on the driver's side of the vehicle. At this point, I was concerned for Billy's well-being, and this is starting to lead me to believe that foul play is involved.
Now the detectives had their crime scene with the most profound evidence, a projectile. But when forensic analysis revealed that it didn't match any firearms from known bank robberies, detectives were left with more questions than answers. Could a dangerous fugitive be ever found? However, at that time, their priority was to find Billy. Therefore, the detectives began canvassing the industrial park and started questioning locals, hoping to find any lead.
Called a field interview. We just got to get some information.
See anything out here that's out of the ordinary?
No.
Okay.
Unfortunately, they hit a dead end. No one had seen or heard anything suspicious. Now they were dealing with two cases, but no solid leads. One involved a missing victim, the other a missing suspect. And with little to go on, the detectives began to fear the worst. But they refused to give up. Their persistence soon paid off when they uncovered a critical breakthrough.
It was at this point in time that I was notified by one of the detectives that one of the warehouse locations had a video. And in that video, it actually shot down the angle for where the vehicle was. Looking at the video, you see what appears to be a tow truck backing in to the exact location where Mr. Schuler's truck is. And at that point, drop the car off and they leave, leaving the car there. So now we have some kind of an idea of possibility that we know the vehicle got here by a tow truck, but it didn't make sense. We don't know where Mr. Schuler is. We don't know what the circumstances are.
They had surveillance footage, but there was one issue. It had a low-quality video. The police even had footage that showed the man who parked Billy's car, but still his face was not visible, and they were not even able to track down tow truck details. This made the investigation more challenging.
So as an investigator, I have a missing elderly man. We have a pickup truck towed to the industrial park, and we don't know why there's a projectile on the running board of the truck. To me, it was very important to find Billy Schuler as soon as possible.
Yet detectives were determined to find more leads. Therefore, they re-examined the vehicle, and what they discovered was beyond horrifying.
There was apparent blood throughout the vehicle, specifically the majority of it on the passenger side and the passenger side floorboard.
It had already been 48 hours since the investigation began, and with each chilling discovery, the detectives were more concerned.
So based on the initial investigation, knowing his wife reported him missing after him not returning home after 24 hours, which is unheard of, and then finding his vehicle with a large amount of blood, I realized this is a homicide investigation.
But this was only the beginning. A shocking new piece of evidence would soon emerge, bringing detectives closer to the truth than ever before.
We were transitioning now to trying to find who did this to him. One of the very significant pieces of evidence was in the center console area, there was a coin envelope, and the coin envelope had a bloody fingerprint on it.
Now the detectives knew that they had a pivotal clue to lead them to the person who was responsible for Billy's disappearance. Therefore, they sent the coin envelope evidence to the forensic department. But this would take some time to analyze the fingerprints. In the meantime, the detectives were still investigating any other possible clues. They began to track the GPS located in the car to track down the movements of the vehicle. This was the moment they landed on another big breakthrough. They decided to track the GPS from Billy's truck, hoping it would reveal its movements. What they found was another critical clue.
Once I knew of the locations where the truck had stopped based on the GPS, I drove the majority of the route, and I could see a house with signs that say, "Smile, you're on camera," "Surveillance in use," and I'd see the multiple cameras on the house. So after I saw the initial house that had all the cameras, I had found 3 other houses as well that had cameras that were facing the roadway where the GPS had driven past. I'm praying, please have cameras that do record.
The detectives believed this surveillance footage might capture what they needed the most, the movement of Billy's car. Therefore, they began reviewing the footage. It was not long before the detectives found multiple surveillance footage capturing Bill's car in various locations.
I could see it coming down US 19, turning onto Miles Stretch Road, and then ultimately pulling into the industrial park area. And from there, it winded through the neighborhood in Holiday down there, which is within a mile or two of where his truck was eventually located. Unfortunately, because of the lack of high definition quality, I could not determine who was driving the truck.
Then, something caught their attention. Inside the vehicle, a chilling sight made their blood run cold.
Began watching the surveillance. Was completely shocked. That's somebody hanging out of that car.
What could be in that video surveillance that detectives found so horrific?
I began watching the surveillance from the residence at the intersection. I can observe Billy's truck approaching towards the intersection. And then I see the truck make a left-hand turn through the intersection where the passenger side is facing the cameras. And at that point, I see the front passenger door swing open. And I can see a person that appeared completely lifeless almost fall completely out of the truck as it continued through the intersection.
Unfortunately, again, the surveillance footage had low quality, which made the detectives harder to identify the person who was driving the car. However, detectives still did not lose hope and continued their canvass of the GPS track to find the location of Billy. Unfortunately, on May 23, 2014, it was the moment when they stumbled upon the most important clue.
I discovered that the pickup truck had stopped at a liquor store for a short amount of time. I responded with another detective over to this area.
Without knowing what they were about to uncover, they kept moving forward.
When I arrived, I observed tire prints going back towards a wooded area where there was tall grass.
Then they spotted something on the ground, a single shoe. It wasn't just a clue, it suggested they were on the right track. A few steps later, the investigation took a grim turn. What lay ahead confirmed their worst fears, turning suspicion into a chilling reality.
At this point, I observed a shoe on the ground, which was a match to the other shoe that was inside of the pickup truck. Me and the other detective were able to walk into this grass, and that is where we found a deceased body.
They had found Billy's lifeless body on the ground. Yet despite the heartbreaking discovery, their work was far from over. The biggest question remained: who was behind this senseless crime?
Now it was imperative to find out who killed Mr. Schuler, because we have a killer out on the loose.
However, the detectives knew that they were closer to the killer. What they just needed was a profound lead. Therefore, they continued to search the crime scene.
The tire tracks at the location of where the body was found suggested the suspect had taken advantage of Mr. Schuler, potentially taking his vehicle, killing him.
Detectives faced another problematic task alongside the ongoing investigation: informing Billy's family about the devastating discovery.
It was Memorial Day weekend. They said that they found a body, that it actually was Dad. They said that it'd been there for 3 days. We were just numb to it. We already knew that Dad was not coming home.
The detectives understood the case's urgency. They needed to find the culprit quickly, as Billy's family desperately awaited justice. With all the evidence, they carefully pieced together a theory of what might have happened to him.
The amount of blood located inside of the vehicle and the projectile found on the outside of the vehicle, the video of the body coming out of the pickup truck suggested to me that Mr. Schuler was shot inside of this pickup truck, and the killer took control of the vehicle and drove off with Mr. Schuler inside of it.
Even with these findings, investigators still had no lead to identify the culprit. They sent Billy's body for an autopsy, hoping to uncover missing evidence. The report confirmed he died from a single gunshot wound, but no DNA or other clues were found. Once again, they had evidence, but no suspect. Therefore, the detectives shifted their approach and began examining Billy's phone records, focusing on his coin-dealing contacts before his disappearance. Then they uncovered a key detail. One of Billy's last calls was to 52-year-old Anthony Marseca, better known as Tony, a name that would soon take the case in a new direction.
I wanted to make contact with Tony Maresca because he could have been the last person to see Billy Schuler alive.
Without delay, the detectives arrived at Tony's residence.
So I knocked on the door of Tony's house. Nobody answered. At this point, a white Explorer pulled up with a white female inside.
At this stage of the investigation, they had no idea that a woman they were about to speak with would soon provide the most critical details about their suspect.
Okay, I'm Detective McGinnis, the Pasco Sheriff's Office. Do you have any idea why I need to talk to you?
I have no idea.
Okay. And are you married?
No.
Do you have a boyfriend?
Yeah, Anthony Maresca.
Okay. Do you have any idea where he's gone to now?
No idea.
As an investigator, it seems strange that Mr. Maresca was missing and could be a major part of this investigation.
However, Tony's girlfriend couldn't confirm his whereabouts, but detectives suspected he could be their key suspect. Thus, they decided to ask for her permission to enter his residence, and she agreed.
I don't care if there's drugs in there or anything like that at this point. You know, I'm more worried about a bigger picture than that. Did you see anything disturbed in your house or different? Anything? I don't know that at this point, but I want to rule that out if you don't mind.
That's all right.
At this point in time, we need to find Tony we asked permission if we could come into the house. Once we walked inside, it was a forensic horror.
But as they stepped inside, instead of finding crucial clues, they were met with a scene that left them stunned and confused.
The house was really a basic house, nothing big. But our first concern is he in there and is he hiding? The house was filthy. It was cluttered. There were boxes everywhere, furniture everywhere. There was a small pathway throughout the house.
However, their search led to disappointment, as Tony was nowhere to be seen. Realizing they needed more information about Tony, they continued their conversation with his girlfriend.
Does he own any guns?
No, he doesn't own any guns.
Does he have any kind of criminal history?
I think about 20 years ago or something.
What was that of?
I think he got fights and stuff.
Okay.
I think he went to jail a couple times for fights.
Okay.
Through their conversation with Tony's girlfriend, detectives gathered initial details about him, including his prior involvement in jail, which hinted at a history of aggression. However, these findings alone were not enough to ultimately link him to Billy's murder. Soon after, they received a crucial breakthrough that would confirm their suspicions about Tony's involvement in the murder.
I was contacted by the forensic unit and advised that the bloody fingerprint that was on the coin envelope located in Billy Schuler's truck had been positively identified as Tony Maresca's fingerprint. Forensics was able to match the bloody fingerprint to Tony Maresca's previous arrest records.
This proved pivotal evidence, which showed that Tony was indeed a killer, but it was one thing that frustrated them.
At this point, I believe we have our killer, but we are not getting any closer at finding his location.
Despite their best efforts, they had no idea where Tony was, as he had completely cut off contact with his friends and family. This made it even harder to track down his movements, and the officers feared the worst, that he might slip through their fingers. They found themselves in a frustrating situation, knowing precisely who they were after but being unable to find him. For over a year, they tried to track him, but couldn't until an unsettling information unraveled that led them to believe he was now involved in another crime.
So when I was looking at the images from the different banks, I joked with another detective and my sergeant at the time, saying, can you imagine if this is Maresca doing these bank robberies? We don't know where he's at. We know he's probably out of money.
Their suspicion was soon confirmed with a crucial tip-off that came from someone close to Tony.
I'd received a phone call from an extended family member of Tony's, who I had been dealing with during the homicide investigation. She had ultimately told me that a lot of the family members have viewed the bank robbery surveillance images and videos online and on the news, and they believe Tony's the suspect in the bank robbery.
But despite this revelation, he remained out of their reach, and to track him down, the officers had to brainstorm like their fugitive. They began monitoring his known associates, and eventually, one of them led them straight to Tony. He was hiding at a local motel, which was located just a short distance from his actual home in Palm Harbor.
We approached the front door. At that point, we did what we call a knock and announce, and informed him that, the U.S. Marshal Service was outside his door. The door quietly opened. He exited the room with his hands in the up position, showing me that he had nothing. I immediately took custody of him.
On June 15, 2015, Tony was finally arrested for the armed bank robberies and Billy's murder. But the concrete evidence against him that linked him directly to the robberies unraveled when investigators searched his motel room.
Searching the room, found a silver handgun, looked consistent with the firearm he used throughout the bank robberies. There was other items, clothing, glasses, hats, items that all appear to be consistent with what the robber wore during each of the different bank robberies.
However, his connection to Billy's murder was still unproven, and to confirm his involvement in the murder, the officers conducted a crucial test that ultimately sealed his fate.
That bloody fingerprint ended up being confirmed to be Billy Schuler's DNA, his blood, with Anthony Maresca's fingerprint.
To uncover the entire truth and the reason behind Tony murdering Billy, they still required a confession from Tony, but he, on the other hand, refused to talk. It was then, on March 14, 2017, an inmate stepped forward with shocking revelations, which ultimately revealed Tony's hidden secrets.
Your girlfriend said you may have information regarding Anthony Maresca?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, we was roommates. They had us in the same holding cell, and so he just like, yeah. So I'm like, man, so what happened? Which is, he said his brother was letting him borrow money, he was messing up money, and he went to doing meth. He told me that it made him feel like he never felt before, like he was powerful and stuff like that. Then he telling me that he ran into a dude named Billy. He had a Dodge Ram truck. He said the dude met him with the coins. He was a coin collector. They met him with the coin collector. He said he shot the dude. He shot the dude in the head. He killed the dude.
Now the investigators had enough evidence to make a strong case against Tony. In 2014, Tony's trial began in the charge of bank robberies and the murder of Billy. The case was prosecuted by Assistant United States Attorneys Michael Lehman and Simon Gogush. During the trial, Attorney Michael presented crucial evidence, including a coin envelope found in Billy's car that contained Tony's fingerprints and his DNA evidence that was found on Billy's deceased body. This evidence was proven to be crucial in proving Tony's involvement in Billy's murder. Furthermore, Tony was also charged with multiple bank robberies, specifically in 8 banks over the period of 6 months across Pasco, Pinellas, and Hernando counties. During his sentencing, Billy's son, Mike Schuler, was also present in the court.
First time I walked into the courthouse, my stomach was in knots. He looks at me. It was ironic because I seen the life go out of him. He turned as white as a sheet and would not stop staring at me. They say because I looked so much like my dad. The bailiff had to come back and move him because he wouldn't stop staring at me. And I'll never forget that face.
Finally, in October 2016, District Judge Mary S. Scriven announced that Tony Maresca had pleaded guilty to the second-degree murder of Billy Schuler, and he was sentenced to 40 years in federal prison for this crime. Consequently, he also received another 40 years sentence for multiple armed bank robberies in the Tampa Bay area. Ultimately, the Billy Schuler case was shocking and heartbreaking for the detectives involved. The seemingly chasing case of bank robbery led them to the killer of Billy Schuler. The journey to justice was long and difficult, but with relentless determination, detectives were able to uncover the truth. Although Tony Maresca's arrest and conviction brought some closure for the families, no sentence would erase the pain that they had to suffer.
In a way that I don't even know if we'll recover from it. My mom lives through this like it happened yesterday. It has destroyed her to this day. He was supposed to come home and then take Mom to get a candle. And, he never made it back.
The haunting question for Billy's loved one always remained as to why this happened and will never fade. With this, we ask you, do you think Tony would have ever been captured if he didn't do the robberies? Was his motive behind killing Billy was money or something else? Let us know your thoughts in the comment section below.